21. Like, comment, and subscribe. We're just going to do some general topics, hot topics in regards to what's going on after the verdict. What's going on? Many conversations are being had. Many subjects are being talked about. Some people are being called out. There is a lot going on. Real talk. And I'm just going to cover some stuff. Even after the verdict, there's a lot being conversated. So we're going to get to some clips, and that way people can understand what's happening after the verdict. Let me go ahead, do my disclaimer. Come on in, you guys. Let's generally talk. I guess Young Miami's kind of, wait, let me go back. I guess Young Miami's showing like clock that. Many people were surprised she didn't even take the stand. So let's get into my disclaimer. Hold on one second. Like the videos you guys come in. I appreciate you all for being here. I hope you're keeping cool. A lot of people are dealing with a lot of extreme heat. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Come on in. Let me see. I might have to redo that. I don't know what happened. It never does that. So come on in as you guys like the video. And prayers go out to his children and his family. I couldn't even imagine what they've been thinking, how they've been feeling. They have been there supporting Diddy through the trial, but mom's been there almost pretty much every day. Almost every day. That's a strong mama. But let's get to, okay. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. So we're going to get to a few different things, what the media is talking about, what's being said, how some people feel about the day-to-day and what's possible. Because it's going to now be alleged up to the judge in regards to the time in which he plans to give him. So we're going to get through some clips. Yes, I'm live, believe it or not. Ooh, what's going on there? So let's get to it. I appreciate y'all being here. I do. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope all is well.
Story. Good morning, Rhiannon. Hey, good morning to you. We turn now to the Sean Diddy Combs trial and a look inside the deliberation room as we hear from one of the jurors. Rhiannon Alley is here with that story. Good morning, Rhiannon.
Hey, good morning to you, Rebecca. This was a long and emotional trial lasting nearly 2 months. Now, one of the jurors who delivered that bombshell mixed verdict is speaking out for the first time. This morning, a juror from the Sean Diddy Combs trial requesting to remain anonymous, slamming the notion that the music mogul's celebrity profile drove their decision. In a statement to ABC News saying, "I found that statement highly insulting and belittling to the jury and the deliberation process," adding, "Our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law stated we would have treated any defendant in the same manner regardless of who they are." The jury of 8 men and 4 women acquitted the rap titan of the most severe charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. On 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution as it relates to ex-girlfriends Cassie Ventura and the woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane. An alternate juror telling CNN, though he wasn't part of the deliberations, he agrees with the verdict.
I took a copious amount of notes. I think reading all my notes and looking back at the evidence, I probably would have reached the same conclusion as the other jurors.
Now, Combs will remain in a Brooklyn detention center while he awaits sentencing. The date has not been set, but the judge proposed holding that hearing in October with.
Rhiannon, thank you.
So many people are feeling, did they do a good job?
And Brian,
in regards to the decision that was made, some people are saying, did the jurors do a good job, or were they ready to go home for the holiday?
That is essentially a jury rendering a partial verdict here. And Brian, you brought up something called an Allen charge, which, and I'm going to attempt to put my legal hat on here, but that is essentially a jury rendering a partial verdict here that the judge could potentially accept.
Well,
Well, Alex, I gotta say, you didn't pass the bar, but you know a little bit, and you do know a lot. Yes, an Allen charge comes from the Supreme Court case where if a jury has got to a point like we have here, where they say they're at an impasse, and they feel for whatever reason that there cannot be a meeting of the mind of the 12 people, that they cannot go forward. And initially what will happen is a judge will read either the standard language of an Allen charge, and you can Google it, and you can probably find it for the SCNY or any kind of federal court, or they would kind of modify the language, making it shorter or longer, or emphasizing more aspects of it, depending on what the sides agree to. And basically what you're telling the jury is, it's your job to keep pushing forward. It's difficult, and we understand you may have different opinions, but lean on each other, talk to each other, try to converse, and see if there's other facts or arguments or suggestions where you can all come to consensus, whatever that consensus is. And in an Allen charge, you cannot feel like you are moving the needle in one way or the other. It has to be absolutely neutral. It cannot be suggesting that you must convict or that you must acquit, and that's what's going to happen. But this last message to the jury by the judge, I think, is going to be more telling than anything else, because right now it's 5:20 p.m. The judge has always instructed them that they can come back the next day. Tomorrow is Wednesday. It's still well within the game to come back and deliberate. Friday is July 4th. That's a day off. Thursday, they were told they're going to be off as well. And so if the jury says we are willing to stay, that would be a strong indication that they're close to a verdict, and we might get one today. If they say that they have to come back tomorrow, that would be a strong indication that the opinions of people are so strong, they're hoping that they can maybe sleep on it and come back tomorrow and start again. What we hear next from the jury will be very telling.
Well, and Brian, because this situation is developing literally as we speak, we just heard that the judge sent the jury back to the deliberation room. He gave them the option to either resume deliberations today or to adjourn and return in the morning. Said that he instructed them to send back a note whenever they came to a decision. They have come to a decision. They are adjourning for the day. They will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. to resume those deliberations. But I want to get back to these counts. We've got 5 counts here, the most severe of which is that racketeering conspiracy, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. But counts 2 and 3 are also quite severe. And count 2 does also have that maximum sentence of life in prison as well.
Yeah, it's not just, I know oftentimes we talk in the news, it's easier to talk about the max, but oftentimes the minimum is the most harsh, because for those sex trafficking allegations, sex trafficking either Cassie or Jane, there's a minimum of 15 years. And I think that's very important when you're talking about anyone, but especially when you're talking about a 55-year-old, because you're talking about if Sean Combs is found guilty of even just sex trafficking Cassie, at best, he's not going to be able to get out until he is 70 years old. Now, when it comes to the feds, you often do 85% of your sentence for every year you spend in jail. You get good time, meaning that time cut off that sentence of 54 days. But 15 years is a lot, but life is life.
Okay, so now we're gonna play the clip in regards to the juror that was in holding. And if they needed a backup juror, we're gonna hear what he has to say. And mind you, there's other counts that he was guilty regarding. So it's up to the judge now and what that means. They're going to look at his history, what's going on. He has a lot that he has to do prior to him being sentenced. Now, they are asking that happens immediate. His attorneys allegedly want to move up that time frame. Okay, so let me go back. Hold on one second.
Prove that it was like a criminal enterprise was a very high bar.
George was a juror in the Sean Combs criminal trial. After sitting for nearly 2 months, listening to 34 witnesses, he found out he was an alternate and sent home at deliberation time. So what did you think of the verdict then?
I understood the verdict.
What would you say to those people who think that the jury got it wrong?
The charges on sex trafficking, they were more difficult, and the standard of proof was very high.
The Manhattan man says he would have voted to convict on the prostitution charges too.
The prosecution presented bank receipts, flight records. That one was easy.
Only the 12 jurors and 6 alternates like George were shown videos of the freak-offs, which he says were helpful for the prosecution.
Some were just, it was just rubbing oil and that, and then some were more graphic.
Do you think that the women were willing participants of these freak-offs?
There were text messages that you saw that said there was love. I think there was one quote, the highs were high and the lows were low.
But when the prosecutors played this horrific video of Cassie Ventura being beaten at the Intercontinental Hotel,
it was a very shocking video. To see overall the beating.
Who do you think was the best witness?
The testimony of Jane and Cassie was very emotional.
And who was the worst witness?
I think the defense put some holes more in, especially Dawn Richard was a big one. I think Bana was another one.
George says he never felt intimidated being in the same room as Diddy, despite him being admonished by the judge for his body language toward the jury at times.
You could tell that he was fighting for himself.
He feels good for doing his civic duty in such a prolific case, and had high praise for all of the attorneys involved.
It was exhausting. And it's good to be finished with it and to move on.
Anthony DiLorenzo, Pix 11 News.
Yeah, everybody's feeling like people are excited that it's over. Hold on one second. Like the videos, you guys come in.
And a look inside the deliberation room as one juror is now speaking out anonymously. ABC's Rhiannon Alley has that story.
A juror from the Sean Diddy Combs trial requesting to remain anonymous, slamming the notion that the music mogul's celebrity profile drove their decision. In a statement to ABC News saying, I found that statement...
He wanted to be anonymous, but he showed his face. I don't know his name. I'm not trying to find out, but one of the jurors has spoke out. Will the other jurors speak out?
Highly insulting and belittling to the jury and the deliberation process, adding our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law stated we would have treated any defendant in the same manner regardless of who they are. The jury of 8 men and 4 women acquitted the rap titan of the most severe charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, but convicted him on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution as it relates to ex-girlfriends Cassie Ventura and the woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane. An alternate juror telling CNN though he wasn't part of the deliberations, he agreed.
Please subscribe to the page, you guys. Let's get the likes up to 100, please. Please double tap the screen. Thank you. Please double tap the screen to hit the like. Double tap the screen. YouTube makes it extremely easy to double tap the screen, and it lets everyone know we're live. That's a way to support the channel. We're at 11 likes. We should be at 100. Yes, thank you. Let's double tap the screen so we can continue, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Yes, it's a hot day and I'm out here making videos. I thank you guys. I appreciate it. Let's continue. Fair use.
With the verdict.
I took a copious amount of notes. I think reading all my notes and looking back at the evidence, I probably would have reached the same conclusion as the other jurors.
So that's what that juror felt. He was a backup juror. He felt he would have came to the same conclusion. I need to ask a question, and I need to find out. Nope. I'm gonna look into it, and then I have some questions. I'm going to look into it and then I have some questions because I don't want to sound ridiculous. So I'll hold it. I'll research it because I really want to look into. Let's get to some more news. Okay, hold on one second. We're going to go to News Nation, and this is going to be Cuomo. And the gentlemen are kind of going in regards to what the verdict was. They were not happy, baby. They weren't happy. And many people are kind of side-eyeing. Is it because the feds did not do a good job presenting the case about him?
But the worst case scenario doesn't involve him spending the rest of his.
You making my assessment that this jury was rejecting not just the facts in the case, but the prosecution's overreach.
Oh, that's a plausible argument. I'm not going to deny that. It clearly appears that the prosecution did overreach. You had lawyers all over the place swearing. That's exactly what happened with the Southern District of New York. And there's no way around it. I mean, we heard some very disgusting things throughout the trial, things that I don't think, from an image perspective, Sean Diddy Combs can recover from. But let me tell you something. He doesn't give a damn about that today. What he cares about is that he knows that the worst case scenario doesn't involve him spending the rest of his life in prison because sex trafficking and RICO charges were charges he was acquitted of. And so as a result of all that we heard, I just saw Ray J saying what he said. And one point that I'd like to peel from that is that you do find yourself looking at the court system. And in this particular...
Many people feel they had a weak case. Many people feel they had a weak case. Is it me? Did he get charged with the substances? Did he get charged with the substances that were at his house and all the stuff that was at his house? Did he get charged for what was in that hotel? I just need somebody, a legal person, to tell me. Did he get charged for everything that was in that house? And did he get charged for what was in that hotel? Can somebody tell me? Any legal eagle. Did the feds do a good job? Yes or no? Did they present their case properly? You got to remember, the man that presented this court case and that took that was on the podium talking about the charges, he retired. He retired, remember? See, people are saying they did a horrible job. And people are saying it's great that he beat the feds because they did a horrible job presenting their case. What can you do? What can the jurors do if they did a horrible job presenting the case? real talk, y'all. Day-to-day people were like, I would have did a better job than that. People that they were talking about on the stand, they didn't even bring them up to take the stand. What? How can you not bring the people you're talking about day in and day out? They're talking about KK, didn't take the stand. They brought up his other girlfriends, didn't take the stand. Some of the girls went MIA. So will there be charges against her if she went MIA and she was supposed to be on that stand? So many people are like, what? So if their charges was weak, that's their fault. That's their fault if they couldn't present proper stuff. Day-to-day people notice stuff. Allegedly, go back and look at the videos. They had said they missed the house. If you're rating his homes, because remember his son did a song. How could you miss a crib? And allegedly in the court hearing, this is about 3 weeks ago, they said they didn't even touch his basement in one of the houses, allegedly, but the news reporter reported it, and I rewound it, and I let y'all hear, allegedly they missed the basement when they raided the house. Some of the people didn't take the stand, KK or D-Rock. How are you not going to take the person that assists him? How was he on a trial by himself? How? What? Yeah. They said they tanked it. They said it was tanked. And then for his son to say they missed the house. They missed a house? How? And you didn't do anything about the basement? Some of his friends wasn't called to take the stand. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you notice? Some of the girlfriends after Cassie didn't take the stand. Jane did, but there was other girlfriends he had. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
This is the Southern State of New York, Southern District of New York, and you find yourself saying to them, you tried to convict them in the court of public opinion because you certainly succeeded in that. All of us look at him with far more than a raised eyebrow. But that wasn't the district attorney's office job. Your job was to get him convicted in the court of law, and you didn't pull it off because your case wasn't strong enough in the eyes of 12 jurors who said there's no way on earth they should send this man to prison for the rest of his natural life because you didn't prove a case of sex trafficking or racketeering.
Right, and it'd be one thing if it was even if the district attorney. This was the attorney general. This was the federal courts, and for them to do it this way was a big swing and a miss. I mean, he's a guy who did bad things, and everybody knows it, but it doesn't mean that they met this burden. All right, so let's talk about perception and reality on another very big front of our budgeting process. James Carville, there is a notion that Bill O'Reilly will certainly defend tonight that you got to pass this bill, or we will go into a recession. What do you make of that?
Well, you pass it, we'll probably go into a recession. If you don't pass it, we'll probably go into a recession. I'm not totally sure it's related, but I think Bill is correct. I mean, the Republicans don't have much choice. They got to pass something. I mean, they just can't pass gas. And
okay, so they talked about Diddy. That was quick. So, of course, Bill O'Reilly said something about the music industry. And they were basically saying to Bill O'Reilly, hello, you're not within our same culture. Bill, you're about what, 60? And some of the jurors, they had a concern that some of the jurors were not in. They may have chosen younger jurors, and maybe they would have gotten a different reaction. We're going to hear the press conference. Some people did not hear it in regards to his attorney speaking out, feeling like they had a win, and maybe they did.
All of us and a prison, and that today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens.
Diddy may have been acquitted of some pretty big charges at his criminal trial, but he still was convicted of 2. So what's next for him in terms of sentencing, his finances, facing a wave of lawsuits, including a brand new one from a former exotic dancer who claims Diddy drugged and assaulted him, caused him to lose teeth and have to get gastric surgery? We're going to talk about it all right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
So this is basically after the verdict. Let's continue.
Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later died, expedited to happen sooner. Obviously, they want that considering Combs' result.
Fair use reaction clip. Please subscribe, you guys. We're trying to hit 40K. Please subscribe, you guys. We're trying to hit 40K. Please continue to hit the like, you guys. Let's get the likes to 100. Thank you. Let's continue. I don't want to stop the show again. We're about 600 in the building. If I can please get 600 people to please subscribe, we will hit 40K. If I get all 600 to subscribe, we'll hit 40K. Thank you. Let's continue.
So denied bail yet again, despite arguments from his legal counsel after the verdict that he should be released on bond. It didn't happen. They want to make sure that this happens as quickly as possible. But what will he be sentenced to, really? That's the question. And also, will the government seize his assets? What about all of those civil lawsuits that he faces? Again, a lot of questions, a lot to get into. So for all of this, let me bring on former sex crimes prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, the great Matt Murphy is with us. Matt, good to see you.
Happy to be here, as always.
Got to ask you your reaction to the verdict. Is it what you expected?
Well, hearkening back to, I don't know, we were talking about this, you and I, a couple months ago, and I got to say, you know, whether it's fun to be right or not in a case like this, we were both right. This was never a good fit for RICO for a lot of different reasons. And the consent element regarding the sex trafficking was always problematic. And I thought the prosecution here did a good job presenting their case. They did a good job presenting their theory. But when you match in a trial context, when you match like professorial and kind of plotting, which is the way a lot of government lawyers are, versus dynamic and engaging and that personality of the defense, it's always a mismatch. You're always up against it. And the Mann Act, like we talked about, I thought he was going down on that after like the second day of testimony. The problem is for the prosecution, the Mann Act is a very old law, and it was essentially legislative morality from about 100 years ago, where it was the, transporting prostitutes across state lines. The intent may have been good. It was essentially a very early version of sex trafficking, but it was really more an attempt to stop prostitution, which is, as we know, never going to happen. So almost every lonely guy in New York City who's going through a divorce, who is having a problem in the dating pool, who has some sex worker drive over from New Jersey, if he buys her Uber or his Uber, theoretically that's a violation of the Mann Act. So that is it's not the same type of crime. There's no mandatory minimum under federal law. The judge does not have to. Right, they don't have to. Now, it carries up to 10 years per event, so he faces up to 20 years. The prosecution, I think, is asking for 46 months or something like that. They're asking for far less than that.
If the case was, if they had called, let's say, Christina Coram, okay, this chief of staff who had been mentioned, I think, by almost every witness, and she said, hey, listen, there was a criminal enterprise, okay? We were all a part of it. Everybody knew what the job description was. My job was to do this. His job was to do this. You think they would have gotten racketeering? If they didn't include Jane, who was arguably the more problematic testimony, I mean, Sean Combs still paying her rent, messages that she was setting up a lot of these sexual encounters. Cassie had messages, too, that were problematic that showed, if we're talking about whether she was a willing participant or not. But if you focus just on Cassie and you didn't call in Jane, or you didn't call in Amia, or you didn't call in a Brianna Bengolan, you limited the case. And now it's so...
Did y'all catch that? Let me rewind for a few seconds. Hold on. Fair use reaction clip. Fair use reaction clip.
Drive over from New Jersey, if he buys her Uber or his Uber, theoretically that's a violation of the Mann Act. So that is it's not the same type of crime. There's no mandatory minimum under federal law. The judge does not have to. Right, they don't have to. Now, it carries up to 10 years per event, so he faces up to 20 years. The prosecution, I think, is asking for 46 months or something like that. They're asking for far less than that.
If the case was, if they had called, let's say, Christina Coram, okay, this chief of staff who had been mentioned, I think, by almost every witness, and she said, hey, listen, there was a criminal enterprise, okay? We were all a part of it. Everybody knew what the job description was. My job was to do this. His job was to do this. You think they would have gotten racketeering? If they didn't include Jane, who was arguably the more problematic testimony, I mean, Sean Combs still paying her rent, messages that she was setting up a lot of these sexual encounters. Cassie had messages, too, that were problematic that showed, if we're talking about whether she was a willing participant or not. But if you focus just on Cassie and you didn't call in Jane, or you didn't call in Amia, or you didn't call in a Brianna Bengolan, if you limited the case, and now it's so easy to play, Monday morning quarterback or armchair lawyer here, but do you feel that the prosecution could have won this case if they structured it differently, if they called different witnesses?
Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Please subscribe. We're almost at 40K. We have 756 in the building. Please subscribe and please hit the like button. Thank you.
That's a great question, and that's something that these prosecutors will literally be wondering for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their careers. They're going to be wondering if they'd done it differently, would the impact upon the jury and would the results have been different. The fundamental problem, I think, is that this was kind of always a round peg in a square hole. The arson, that domestic violence video that we all watched, that's horrific, all of that should have been prosecuted as state crimes in Los Angeles. That as a fundamental starting point.
Well, they couldn't do it now. It's time barred.
No, of course, the statute is run on everything.
Yep.
But that would have been, he would have been prosecuted for exactly what he did instead of predicate acts into a RICO theory. Now, RICO, as we know, was designed for essentially mafia organization, for organized crime. And the idea is simply because there's a legitimate business, like in The Godfather, they had a legitimate olive oil importing business, and that was but it was still a criminal enterprise. The real thing was the mafia. The real thing was the organized crime surrounding the Corleone family, to use an example that everybody can probably relate to. So simply because their olive oil importing business was legitimate, that's not a defense to a RICO thing. That's the current state of the law. What they did here is they took a business that was always legitimate, Bad Boy Records, that was always and the purpose is to make music and make money. Everything surrounded that, and the defense argument, which they obviously argue very effectively, was that is not a criminal enterprise. So the very first element of RICO has always been problematic from the very beginning. You and I talked about that 2 months ago when this whole thing started, and the jury. This was a sober jury. That the questions were serious and direct, and they sent that note out regarding Juror 25 right at the very beginning, saying, "Hey, this guy's not deliberating," and so this was a serious group, and the Mann Act, they did convict on that. So they were. By the fact that that it was unanimous meant that they were getting along. Federal juries tend to be, in California anyway, we have, they draw our state juries off the DMV database. That's how you get jury duty, is from the DMV. Federally, it's based on voter rules. So it's people who are conscientious enough to actually vote, and you tend to get a more serious class of juror in federal court, which I think is interesting. So to answer your question, it's something that we could kick around for years.
Sure.
But I think the fundamental problem here is that it was always kind of a misfit for a RICO theory. Just like the sex trafficking, sex trafficking requires fraud, force, or coercion, right? So that essentially is the same elements of rape. So you're essentially transporting somebody under circumstances that equate to rape. Something forceful, something fearful. It just doesn't fit very well here, especially when you're talking about all these people who they're orbiting him. They're all trying to advance their own career. And when the defense attorney got up and said, Cassie got $30 million as a result of her settlement, right? And that was a big move.
Yeah, I wasn't sold for that personally, because I was like, the prosecution came back and be like, she already settled. What's her incentive to come here and lie? What's her incentive to be a part of this? And that for me. But I think the messages, the conduct that arguably contradicts someone being a victim, and I know there's complicated factors between an abuser and a victim, the trauma, I get it. I totally understand it, but I wonder if that's what settled the jury. Okay, I want to move past the verdict, because now we have to talk about what's happening next. First thing, when the sentencing hearing is going to happen. So they have this hearing next week about whether to expedite the sentencing, happening before October 3rd. If both sides agree, great. If they don't, what is a compelling legal argument for the defense to say, we want this sentencing to happen much sooner?
Well, I mean, we know that behind the scenes, what they want, of course, is they expect.
Until now, game changer.
Hold on, fair use reaction clip. Like the video. There's about 629 in the building. If you already are subscribed, thank you. Please subscribe if you have not. We're trying to hit 40K. Thank you, and hit the like button. Thank you.
So that's their big motivating factor, of course. Whether the court.
Let's continue fair use. Please subscribe and thank you. Please subscribe and thank you. I see the numbers going up. Thank you.
Abides by that. I mean, it is a substantial change in circumstance. He was acquitted of all of these serious charges, right?
But he was just denied bail. He was denied bail again.
He was denied bail again, and I actually learned that on your segment yesterday afternoon as I was sort of doing my preparation for this. But
were you guys surprised that the judge denied bail? Yes or no?
We have to remember that one of the things that he got in trouble for, that Diddy got in trouble for in jail, was using other inmates' calling number. Remember that? So he was calling witnesses in the case from jail using other inmates. That was a direct affront to that judge. That was remember, we had all those attempts at bail that were denied at the very beginning of the case, one after another after another. This judge, it's the same judge who's going to sentence him, denied that over and over again. And you and I, again, in another conversation we had on your show, we both said he is screwed now, that he's got no chance because he's violating the rules of the court while in jail. So if he's disobeying the rules of the jail and the directive of the court while he's in custody, how can you be expected to actually follow the terms of a bail agreement when he's out of custody? Right. And I think that chicken is coming home to roost again. I mean, I think that's what happened yesterday afternoon. That any judge who has a criminal defendant who behaves like that is an affront to the court itself. It's disrespectful to the court, and it's almost like he couldn't get out of his own way there at the beginning. But he had an excellent defense team.
He does. So assuming for a moment, whenever the sentencing hearing happens, right? Let's say it happens in a month from now. Let's say it has October 3rd. The question is, what's the sentence? As we mentioned, the prosecution in a filing from yesterday talked about the guidelines range being 51 to 63 months. Now, this is before a pre-sentencing investigation and report. Now, the defense, right, they want 21 months. He's already served almost 10. Talk to us about what you're thinking here, because there is no minimum. The maximum's...
Okay, let's hear what the judge may do in regards to the sentencing. Please subscribe, you guys. I see the numbers are going up, but they're going up slow. I'm here bringing y'all some TTT of what's happening. There's about 704 in the building. If I can please get all 700 people to subscribe, and thank you. Please hit the subscribe button, and please hit the like. Thank you.
10. If the judge were to combine it together, like you said, 20 years, feels highly unlikely that would happen. As we're talking, what is a pre-sentencing report investigation? How would it affect this? What do you think the judge is going to do? There's so many different factors to consider here, and it's not like a murder case when it's like, okay, it's like life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's a given. There's room here. What do you think the judge is going to do?
I started Tai Chi at 50.
Like the video,
Now
like
I'm
the video.
68.
Fair use reaction clip. Do you think the judge will be heavy on the sentence or light because of time served? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
On those pre-sentencing investigations. So essentially what will happen is there'll be a federal probation officer, and they do these for almost every case, where they will do their own investigation with those.
Okay, so he's telling us what is expected over the next 30 to 90 days. Fair use reaction clip. Are you guys liking the video, and are you subscribing? If you already subscribed, hit subscribe, so that way I know, because this may be a lot of my people already in here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're trying to hit 40K. Thank you.
Talk to family members, they'll talk to employers, they'll talk to neighbors, and they will make a recommendation to the court as to suitability for release, suitability for time, and that's something that federal judges traditionally really adhere to. They tend to put a lot of weight on those, far more than they do in state court. The probation department can make a recommendation, but the DA will certainly have more ability most of the time to talk a judge in or out of a sentencing recommendation from the probation department. Federal court is different. They really put a lot of weight on those. So that's something that I think is going to be very interesting. And a lot of that will come down to what the individuals involved in that investigation, even though it shouldn't impact their professional recommendation. It's really, I think we're going to see what they thought of the case. You know, did they think he got away with something horrific here? Did they think that he was getting railroaded from the beginning? I think that may reflect in the recommendation of the court. But
thank you for subbing and liking, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
of course, we don't know what that is yet. I don't know. If I'm his defense lawyer, I'm kind of, I don't know if I am pressing the gas on that, trying to make this thing go faster. I mean, it's coming up soon enough anyway. I would want to give them the time and not press them, because you don't want a probation officer or anybody in the federal system to feel like they're being rushed,
right?
Because I think it's very easy to just go, okay, screw it, the guy should stay.
Thank you. Thank you.
The point yesterday, they said the point, like, we're not ready to give a really sentencing recommendation. We haven't got the report. There's people say, well, maybe he'll get time served, right? He's been locked up. There's other people say, no, the judge is going to throw the book at him. Even though the judge said yesterday, even though I'm denying him bail and I'm looking at certain conditions, this is not reflective or a preview of what my sentencing recommendation, what my sentence will be. But are we looking at double digits? Are we looking, you think, at 1 to 5 years time served? I know it's so impossible to ask, but it is a very specific charges he was convicted of.
Yeah, we're not looking at double digits.
Okay.
I cannot imagine the court imposing that. And remember, because this law is so old, and we're in an age of Ubers.
See, they're saying they're not looking at double digits. Many people have said that. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Literally, somebody in New York City, a man or a woman who engages the services of a sex worker who lives in New Jersey, and they pay for.
First off, if you don't like, hold on. If you don't like how I'm handling things, you can go. Yesterday, people had a hard time hearing me. Today, I am doing my show. Go somewhere else. I don't have time for stuff today. I could be with family. I'm not yelling. I'm trying to make sure you can hear me, because yesterday people had a hard time hearing. So you want to complain, go somewhere else. You're timed out now. Goodbye. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Their Uber, that technically is a Mann Act violation. Okay, so it's a morality crime, and that it just does not carry the same weight.
Will the judge say, hey, listen, multiple instances he was doing it, not one Uber, he was doing it multiple times. You have 2 alleged victims here, Cassie, Jane, and violence, right? He used violence as one of the reasons to deny him bail. I wonder if he's going to look at, even though he was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking, different characteristics and components of his relationships with Jane and Cassie, and say, this is aggravated.
It's a very interesting question. Can the court aggravate nonviolent offenses that he was convicted of, which are the Mann Act violations? Can he aggravate those when he was acquitted of the more serious charges, essentially acquitted of everything that involved violence, threats, all of that sort of thing? So it's a very, very interesting legal question.
Real quick, asset forfeiture. What is that exactly? How would it work with Mann Act convictions?
I just don't see the feds being on very strong ground to seize a bunch of assets. And here's why, Jesse. Most of the federal cases where you have, especially RICO cases, an actual RICO case is an actual corrupt organization.
Did many of you know the RICO could have affected his assets? Did many of you know the RICO, if he was guilty of the RICO, that could have affected his assets? So he's very happy it wasn't RICO. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
That the purpose is, like I had one in Salt Lake City last year. It was a fraud case where it was one of these calling room scam operations. Every dollar that they made in that, they made out of the bank account of some poor innocent victim who got scooped up in their scheme. So every dollar, everything they bought, every car, every house, everything that they owned was a direct result of money that they gleaned from innocent people. Those are the cases, or narcotics. We see this all the time in narcotics cases where but it's the same principle. All the things that they have are a result of narcotics profits, right? So when you look at one of those cases, you're seizing assets. Here we've got mansions all over the place. We've got planes. This is a very, very wealthy man who made that money legitimately in Bad Boy Records in the music industry and in the film industry. That's how he made his money, and that is not a product. And that's where we come full circle to this square peg and round hole regarding a RICO theory on this. The money, he didn't make any money from the freak-offs. He didn't make any money from all of the alleged things he did. He didn't make any money from that horrible video that we saw where he's beating Cassie. That's not the source of his income. So I think, again, I don't think that the feds or even the court, I don't think the court will look kindly on that. And there's an old adage in the law that you and I have talked about before. Bad facts make bad law, right? And if they run around and try to seize a bunch of stuff based on this, they're literally taking assets from a citizen that earned them legally. He may be a villain, he may be a bully, he may be a horrible person, but he made that money legally. He was not charged here with tax fraud, which means he paid taxes on it. He's accountants, he put it all together. So I don't see this judge. I think it'd be a very poor move if they try to take a bunch of his stuff. I think that they still have to create a nexus between the Mann Act violations and his property, and I just don't see it.
I don't see it. Okay, well, he might need the money. Why? Because he's got a plethora of civil lawsuits that he's facing now. And by the way, in fact,
okay, now they're going to talk about the civil lawsuits. The civil lawsuits could move forward until after the trial. Will the civil lawsuits bring a lot of proof? Police reports, hospital records, notes, text messages. If it doesn't bring proof, it may be thrown out. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for subscribing, you guys. Continue to subscribe. I see the numbers going up. Thank you.
Garagos had something to say about that yesterday.
Sean Combs has not sexually assaulted anybody. I've been saying this for months. We've said it with each lawsuit that came out, and today that was proven true. The media got it wrong about Sean Combs every single day for nearly 2 years. I ask that for every time you guys see a civil lawsuit, criminal complaints or criminal indictments, you actually take a look and analyze these and see whether or not these are actually going to stand up in a court of law, because today they did not.
Stop letting missing teeth hold you back.
So the videos, think about it. They took a lot of stuff from his home. So none of the videos from his home showed anything from the parties or the events. They didn't talk about the events and the parties at his home. Y'all realize that? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Effect on the civil suits. And let me just ask you about this. You have at least one of the people who testified in this case who's a plaintiff, right? Dawn Richard, former Danny Kane band member, claims she saw Combs assault Cassie. Combs threatened her allegedly when she tried to intervene. She claims she was sexually harassed. So the idea of the criminal case affecting any of the civil cases, let's start there real quick.
Well, what's very interesting about civil versus criminal cases is when somebody's convicted, of course, in a criminal case, because the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, it's called collateral estoppel. It means that for a civil case based on the same event or the same actions, you automatically win the civil case. Okay, so in other words, we saw this with Mike Tyson and his rape conviction, right? When he was convicted of rape, because it was beyond a reasonable doubt, and because the civil aspect only requires proof to a preponderance, that woman a million years ago when that case happened. All she had to do is prove damages. So it's already been proven, right? What happened here, because he was acquitted of all these allegations, now each one of these plaintiffs bears the burden of proof. So this was not only a huge win for him criminally, this was a big win for Sean Combs when it comes to all those pending civil suits, because now those same people, in theory, would have to come in and testify. And remember, Don Richard is a good example. The cross-examination of Don Richard was excellent in my assessment. And I trained young prosecutors for years on how to do cross-examinations. I've taught it in law schools. That cross-examination was biting, and it was really good. So now Don Richard, in her case, she's been really, ripped apart, I thought, on cross-examination in this case. So now she's kind of wounded. Her civil suit is...
Now, why raid his home if you're not going to talk about all the stuff that was found in the home? They made a lot about Cassie and Gina and Mia, but what about the home and the raid of the home? Did the feds do a great job with this case? Many people are side-eyeing how they handled it. Why raid the home if you're not going to really talk about and charge in regards to what you found in the home? So many people are saying Brian Steele beat 2 RICO cases in 1 year. Young Thug and Diddy. Brian Steele helped in regards to 2 RICO cases this year. You can't, you know what I'm saying? What can you do if they didn't present their case? The jury made a decision. It is what it is. Fair use reaction clip.
That's her statements were all admissible in that. She really, there's some things she said on the stand that I think were very harmful to her case. She can still proceed with that, but if I'm her plaintiff's lawyer, I would be trying to find some sort of settlement and number. Who knows? These people, there's a lot to be said for this idea that they were all jumping on the bandwagon trying to get money. I think that argument, most judges are going to allow the defense to make that argument. I think that some of them will settle. Some of them may still go to trial.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. If they don't settle, real quick, would he just try to get rid of them as quickly as possible? Does he say, first argument is, I'm going to try to, anybody who's suing me under a pseudonym, I'm going to try to convince the court that they can't proceed under a pseudonym, because if they now have to reveal their names, maybe they'll be like, okay, I don't want to move forward. Or does he just move for a motion to dismiss on all of them? Can he try to group them together? I know I'm asking like complicated, like how to deal with 66 lawsuits at once, aside from the money that's going to go into.
Yeah, each one of those cases will have its own individual merits, and each one will have to be addressed separately. So yeah, he's going to have to pour a lot of money.
Each individual civil suit will be directed individually because they filed them individually. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Don't forget to subscribe and thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and thank you. Continue to hit the like. Let's get the likes to 100. Please double tap the screen. Let everyone know we're live. Great way to support the channel. Super chats are welcome. The super chat button is below the video. Thank you.
Into his legal fund, but he was looking at life in prison. So, how much of his fortune will go into defending all those lawsuits? Probably a substantial amount, but as we know, he's the guy has been able to pick out good musical talent and also good legal talent.
Hello.
Yep, and it does become a question what his career will be like after. Okay, before I let you go, I have to ask you about this new lawsuit that just came out. We're talking lawsuits. So there's a lawsuit that was filed just 2 days ago. This is a lawsuit filed out in California State Court. Edmund Laurent, former exotic dancer. He's filed a suit against Combs and a Jane Doe and other unnamed people, listing causes of action of assault, battery, intentional emotional distress, negligence, sexual battery, civil conspiracy, aiding and abetting, violation of the California Civil Code. Laurent alleges that he was this star model, this actor, this bodybuilder who was highly sought after for music videos in the 1990s and 2000s, like with Tupac, Dr. Dre, Britney Spears. Actually embedded in his complaint are pictures of him with various celebrities. And then he mentions he rarely consumed alcohol, he didn't do drugs. He claims he was friendly with Sean Combs, having seen him on music video shoots. But then he alleges this. He alleges how he did some work as this male entertainer for bachelorette parties. And on one occasion, he arrives at an LA hotel where Combs and Jane Doe are wearing masks. He performed a private dance. A few days later, he claims he gets another call for Combs and Jane Doe. He alleges that Jane Doe propositioned him for sex. Combs clearly said he wanted this and how much it turns him on to see a man having sex with his girl, so he agrees. Laurent alleges that he kept on contacting him, and on another visit, Combs and Jane Doe unmasked themselves, asked him to apply excessive amounts of baby oil. They allegedly spiked his drink. He claimed on another occasion he applied baby oil that was tainted with GHB, and during sexual intercourse, Jane Doe broke the condom. Now, this is the other thing. Nobody in that courtroom talked about no spiked baby oil. Real talk. Nobody said anything about no spiked baby oil. So was that false too? Nobody said anything about no spiked baby oil. Nobody said anything about no spiked drinks. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. that he was wearing on purpose with their fingernails, despite him previously saying he didn't want to have unprotected sex. He alleges at that point Combs kind of went behind him, whispered into his ear sexual commands. Trapped, uncomfortable. He recounted a really graphic alleged scene where Combs physically grabbed him. And he documents another incident where he claims he was drugged, woke up naked, slathered in baby oil, felt pain in a certain region of his body. He claims he developed warts, he would vomit, gastric issues, had to even undergo surgery.
So why didn't he take the stand? Many people were summoned and their name was on the list, but a lot of those people did not take the stand. Why? Why did they let the civil stuff be civil and not have those people take the stand? Go back. The video from yesterday, the man that did the video with TK, he talked about he met up with Diddy and Cassie for about 7 to 8 years. Why didn't he take the stand? He had to be silenced until after the court, after the trial. They wanted him to shut up until after the trial. Why? Because he was going to talk about Cassie and Diddy. He was going to talk about Cassie and Diddy. What's his name? Clayton Howard. Go look up Clayton Howard's interview. He was going to talk about Cassie and Diddy. Allegedly, he did. They said he wrote a book. So go check that interview out. You're going to learn a lot. We talked about it yesterday for about a good 16 minutes. Clayton was going to tell on Cassie and Diddy. They wanted him to shut up because they didn't want them to look at Cassie in a different light. They made 50% of this, 30 to 40% of this case about Cassie and Diddy, and they shouldn't have. But it was their error. Normal people are side-eyeing this court case. Normal people are side-eyeing how they handled the witnesses. The assistants. What about KK? What about D-Rock? What about the bodyguards? What about the drivers? What about what you caught him saying in his home? If you raided his house, why make it only 30 to 40% about Cassie? If you raided his home, why raid his homes? 2 homes. Allegedly, there's a 3rd home, but they missed it. And allegedly, was that home under a different name and they couldn't get access to that other home? How they handled it is how they handled it. That's why the jurors made the decisions that they made. Real talk. It was how it was handled. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
He embedded photos of the surgery scars in his
Good
lawsuit.
afternoon, everyone.
He says he was once this muscular physique, now no longer. He had stomach issues, gum issues, enamel erosion, bad breath. He says he suffered immediate long-term physical and psychological harm. A lot of information there. But here's an example of a new lawsuit. How does Diddy respond to that?
Well, there are so many problems with that lawsuit, especially now. He hasn't been convicted, and they filed out, I believe, before the acquittal, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, right before the acquittal. So, look, there are so many problems with that. First of all, GHB has I've done a bunch of GHB cases as a prosecutor and also representing victims. GHB has a metabolic half-life of 40 minutes. So I guarantee he has no proof of the GHB allegation. So there's parts of that that don't make sense. That's a case that, Combs is going to have to be, he's going to have to be going through these lawsuits, figuring out which one of these he wants to try to settle monetarily and which ones are going to be worth actually going to trial on again. That's one, who knows? And there's also some statute problems here, Jesse, that I know you.
The statute problems, and will they go over the evidence? And will he settle the ones that have the most evidence? Text messages, police reports, hospital records. That may be the only ones he settled. Real talk. If there's even evidence. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Probably also recognize immediately. This is, depending on the year that this allegedly happened, some of these may be time barred. So there's going to be certainly some legal action trying to get them dismissed for statute of limitations violations, and it'll be interesting. But again, he's got dozens and dozens of these things, but he will have freedom at some point. It will, which is something that a week ago, a lot of people were predicting he was never going to see freedom ever again. So at the end of the day, these lawsuits will work their way through the system. I'm sure some of them will be dismissed on their merits. Some of them will be, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them proceeded to trial, but I bet we're going to see his legal team trying to settle and get rid of as many of these as possible.
Yeah.
And I think for the lawsuits,
but they got to be careful because they don't want to settle those and more come in. Fair use reaction clip.
Were filed during the criminal trial or after. It becomes an argument. Okay, is all this true? I mean, it's Diddy's alleged MO. It's matching a lot of what was said in the criminal case, or do you have a plaintiff who's taking parts of the trial, putting them in a lawsuit, fabricating it? It'll be a question that maybe a jury or a judge will ultimately decide. Matt Murphy.
That's right.
Yep, Matt Murphy, thank you so much. I know you're a busy man. I'm going to let you go, but thank you so much. It was great seeing you.
Happy to.
Great information, you guys. That's what my page do. We conversate. That's what the page is for. Let's talk about it. We talk about what's being reported. I'm not on anybody's side. Doesn't affect me here nor there. Okay, let's go here. Fair use reaction clip. Fair use reaction clip. If you don't got no proof, a lot of people are going to side-eye you. Real talk. The text messages that was sent to him, love you, miss you, are we meeting up? Are we hooking up? Fair use reaction clip. Let's go. Hold on one second. Double checking something. Please continue to subscribe. Everyone, there's about 328 in the building. Please continue to subscribe, and please continue to hit the like button.
Had the courage to file her civil complaint in November 2023. And Kira, we should say that's true. The criminal investigation is largely...
Yeah, I try to be unbiased because when you look at this man could have spent life behind bars. But if you're not going to present the case where the jurors understand it and everyday people don't see the RICO, it is what it is. If you didn't present the information correctly, properly, you raid his home, but you're talking about oil. What? And they did not say the oil was spiked in regards to the court case. So we've been questioning stuff from day one, and I've always said Diddy's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law, and a jury's gonna have to decide. The jury didn't see it. No matter how many times they put those nasty videos in their face, no matter how many times they showed the messages, there was so much stuff that was repetitive. They should have got more witnesses on the stand to tell their side. Since they didn't do that, that's on y'all. That's probably why Diddy's side did not feel they needed to bring witnesses, because everybody was like, this is not good. Everyday people are calling y'all out for not handling it properly. And Bible, Diddy's lawyers were no joke. Let me tell y'all something. I was listening to someone about 3 days ago, and they said they had a younger attorney that was bringing up case law. And they were, and that person, the attorney, was going back and forth with that person talking about case law. That young person was handling his business in court on Diddy's side. This is the case law regarding this. This is the case law regarding this. This is the case law regarding this. He was on his stuff. Diddy's attorneys didn't play. And then they had Brian Steele. Brian Steele had already dealt with the Young Thug case, the RICO case. So if you're not going to get on the basketball court and do your doggone thing, you need to sit down, because if the jurors don't see it, everyday people don't see it. Some of the lawyers for the last 4 weeks were saying, we don't see the RICO. He's up there by himself. We don't see it. We want to see it, but it's not strong enough. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Based on the statements in Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, and intensified, of course, once video from the 2016 hotel security camera became public. The statement from Doug Wigder, her attorney, goes on to say, although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. By coming forward with her experience, Cassie's attorney, Doug Wigder, goes on to say, Cassie...
And praying for the victims that are mentally, physically not well. Praying for the victims. Some people say Cassie stayed too long. Some people say Cassie continued to go back. Some people say Cassie kept sending messages of love, appreciate you. He would do stuff and she would forgive him. And then sometimes she would be locked in a hotel, and then the security guard would keep her there. But you can't go back if he continuously do this kind of stuff to you. And then allegedly threatening to ask the money from Cassie's mom. The relationship was toxic. What the employees went through was toxic. We've talked about that. I can only just tell y'all what people are saying, what they're doing. That's why the pages say, let's talk about it, Media 21. I'm not on anybody's side. If the jury didn't see it, then what can you do? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. We must repeat with no reservation that we believe and support our client.
Yeah, a lot of people need therapy. A lot of people need rehab, because you shouldn't be asking no employee to take a substance for you to show their loyalty. I know you got me all the way messed up. How would y'all feel if y'all boss asked y'all to carry substances? I'm not doing that. I'm not getting caught with substances. Most of us have day in, day out job, 8 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever. How would you feel if your boss asked you to carry a substance? How would you feel if your boss asked you to clean up a room after they did whatever they did? The juices, I'm not cleaning that up. That's nasty. I'm not AI. I have a great voice. I've always had a great voice. Men love my voice. That's why about 60% is man that's listening to me. And we talk about what the news talk about. So it's only going to make sense if I talk about what the news is talk about. It's actual. I'm not AI, but thank you. People love my voice. Yeah, so things are good. Be kind in the comments. I'll block you. This is what we do over here. We talk. We conversate. We talk, we conversate over here. We make sense of what's being talked about. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Who showed exemplary courage throughout this trial. She testified for 4 days, often quite emotionally.
Thank you, thank you.
Explicit detail of what she said she was made to do. And Sean Combs did not deny the facts of the freak-offs. Everything that happened in those hotel rooms did not get challenged by the defense. The defense simply saw it differently as something that went on in a personal, consensual relationship, not sex trafficking. And that's how the outcome is reflected now, Kira.
Bernard, I want to go on to read another part of that statement on behalf of Cassie Ventura's attorney, saying she displayed unquestionable strength and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion.
Sorry to hear that about your pastor, allegedly.
And we will continue to fight on behalf of survivors. Two things that stood out to me: powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that persists and change that is long overdue. Your thoughts?
Power and money. You can buy yourself out of a conviction. Let's be honest that if Sean Combs wasn't able to get the team that he got and pay for that defense team and experts and investigators to help defend himself, that we would have had a different outcome today. But money and power, that you can still get away with crimes if you have money and power. But I have to say, I was in a courtroom for Cassie's testimony, and she was a strong, strong witness. You can tell that the courage that she had, the strength that she exhibited. I mean, when she spoke and when she would cry from time to time, when she revisited those freak-offs and when she revisited those times when Sean Combs brutally beat her, and to see her in court sitting down, showing the strength and courage that she was able to overcome this. I think one of the most strongest moments that brought people to tears is when she said at some point that she went home and she told her husband, "You can do this without me," and that she wanted to cross the street. Suicide. I've been through. But I'm glad that Cassie has been able to pick herself up and has been able to move on, taking it day by day, because it does show the strength that she got as a result of coming forward. That coming forward helped to bring closure to her.
Fair use reaction clip. Do you think that Cassie allegedly felt guilty, and as she knew she was going to have to take the stand, and as they were going to cross-examine her, she would have to feel guilty that she continued to go back? And a lot of them, you got to remember, they want substances. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. We can never...
This is an ABC.
We can never tell a victim how they should respond, when they should leave. It's their choice. Fair use reaction clip. Hold on. So praying for victims. I'm not victim shaming. Many of us know somebody that's allegedly had some concerns with somebody, and we look at them and we can see they're struggling. So praying for victims. Diddy's attorney did the doggone thing. Period. And I listen to legal pages. That's why whenever I do a video, I can really tell you guys what's being said. Legal eagles felt that they did not do a good job presenting the case. Real talk. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
testified, and I would say as someone who watched them, I don't think it should be. I think if anything, this is about how the case was handled by the government in terms of how they argued it, how they presented it, and the people that were selected. People even selected being the jurors, not the team themselves. And so I think as we move forward with this case and we see what's going to happen, because there's a possibility, although small, that Sean Combs walks out today, I think we just take stock of what we heard, what was argued, and what the result was, and not lay this at the...
And he wasn't able to walk out, but we're hearing what he's saying about how the jury handled things.
He didn't testify.
And now I understand, Aaron, a statement has been given on behalf of Cassie Ventura, star witness in this case. What are you learning?
Her attorney, Doug Wigdor, just sent us the following statement. This entire criminal process started when our client, Cassie Ventura, had the courage to file her civil complaint in November 2023. And Kira, we should say that's true. The criminal investigation is largely based on the statements in Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, and intensified, of course, once video from the 2016 hotel security camera became public. The statement from Doug Wigdor, her attorney, goes on to say, although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. By coming forward with her experience, Cassie's attorney, Doug Wigdor, goes on to say, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. We must repeat with no reservation that we believe and support our client, who showed exemplary courage throughout this trial. She testified for 4 days, often quite emotionally so, giving graphic, explicit detail of what she said she was made to do. And Sean Combs did not deny the facts of the freak-offs. Everything that happened in those hotel rooms did not get challenged by the defense. The defense simply saw it differently, as something that went on in a personal, consensual relationship, not sex trafficking. And that's how the outcome is reflected now, Kara.
If you're looking for a
Do you think because Cassie's lawsuit was settled, do you think the feds thought they had a strong case? Since her lawsuit was settled, do you think they felt that they had a strong case? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Questionable strength and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion. This case proved that change is long overdue, and we will continue to fight on behalf of survivors. Two things that stood out to me: powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that persists, and change that is long overdue. Your thoughts?
Power and money. You can buy yourself out of a conviction. Let's be honest that if Sean Combs wasn't able to get the...
Yes, I know oftentimes when we look at jurors, we look at race or gender, and then yes, there's a possibility that the number of men in this case could have been beneficial to Sean Combs in terms of trying to decide what this relationship was like. But I think probably more importantly than race or gender would be age. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to the conversation as to whether or not these were consensual relationships, which appears to be at the heart of the jury's verdict in terms of saying, yes, we saw that you brought these people across state lines for prostitution, but we don't believe there was force, fraud, or coercion for trafficking, and we don't believe that there was a criminal enterprise or that there was not two predicate acts, right? I think a large part of the not believing comes down to consent. And what I find, at least when I talk to a jury, or just talk to people in general, is there's a big divide in terms of what is consent when you talk to someone who is over the age of 40 or 45 and under the age of 40 or 45. And when you have a jury where more than half of them are 51 years to 74 years old, and even if you go even below that, there's a number of people who are in their 40s, I think the conversation and the argument that Mark Agnifilo and his team were having about what it means to consent works for people in that age demographic. I think if we had a jury that was predominantly in their 20s or early 30s, this argument of consent would be very different. So while I do see that there is value...
See, many people felt the jurors that they got, if they were younger, we talked about that, would it have been the same verdict? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
And looking at the gender or the sex of the jurors, I think the age told us a lot more based on the arguments we saw.
Bernarda, you think it was smart that Sean Combs did not take the stand?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very
if Sean
smart.
Combs would have taken the stand, this case would have become a deliberation of whether this jury believed what Sean Combs had to say, whether his demeanor came off as one.
Do y'all think he was smart to not take the stand? And do y'all think they were smart to not call up witnesses? They saw that things were a fumble bag. They questioned people that took the stand. Some of the dates did not add up. Some of the dates didn't add up, y'all. Some of the text messages that were read in court, it didn't add up. If you're mad, why are you saying happy holidays? If you're mad, why are you saying wishing you well? If you're mad, why did you go back to try and work for him? We have to talk about it. This is what my page do. I see certain things that he did that was concerning, period. I see certain things that Cassie did was concerning, period. I see certain things that both attorneys, the sidebars, the objections, Diddy's attorneys did they doggone thing. Real talk. Let's continue. Fair use.
It's credible. Also, you have to think where if Sean Combs were to testify, there was a lot of evidence that the prosecution was not able to get in their case in chief because they were missing a link, and that link would have been Sean Combs. So they would have been able to get that evidence in had Sean Combs testified. So it would have changed the deliberation process, and we would have probably been looking at a completely different verdict. Also, got to think, how would he be able to explain in terms of the brutal beating of Cassie and of Jane on that particular occasion?
Aaron, do you think we'll hear from the family? Sean Combs' mother, Janice, was in the courtroom along with his sons, his daughters. Are they expected to speak? Do you think they will speak?
I'm not sure. They haven't yet during the course of this trial, but the cars that they've been using to transport themselves to and from the courthouse are now pulling up to the front.
Now, we know when they thought that he was getting out, the family was hopeful. The family was hopeful that he was getting out. But a lot of times, you guys, look at case study. Sometimes when one judge make a decision of no bail, the other judges will also sometimes make that same decision. Sometimes when one judge make a decision, the other judge don't want to change that. He said no, I'ma say no. But it might have been because you got to remember Diddy's attorneys said that he does have concerns with X, Y, and Z. The judge used that against them. Diddy's attorney spoke about his behavior, so the judge utilized that against Diddy getting bail. Real talk. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Here, and they should be walking out those golden doors any moment. They may opt to wait until they know whether Combs is going to get released on bail, as his defense attorney.
And as we know, he did not get released from bail, but we're just hearing the conversation. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. I hope you guys are subscribing, and thank you.
He should be, and Combs almost seemed confident that the judge would grant it. He mouthed and said aloud to members of his family in the gallery, "I'm coming home, baby," after the split verdict here, acquitting him of the most serious charges, but finding him guilty of transportation for the purposes of prostitution. And because that is not a violent crime, the defense said that he has earned the right to get released on $1 million bail, as Combs offered to put up.
Aaron, we talk about the support outside of the courthouse there, the cheers that were heard from inside the courtroom. We should point out it's because he had his mom and his kids inside that courtroom. But if you want to talk about people showing up to support Sean Combs throughout all of this, the only celebrity that we witnessed, and correct me if I'm wrong, that came to show support was Kanye West.
That's right.
Were y'all surprised that Kanye was the only one? Was Kanye up there because he thought that Diddy would get a mistrial and he wanted to connect himself to Diddy? Kanye West did work with Diddy's son on a song. Do you think that Kanye was trying to be the first to connect himself to Diddy because he also thought that Diddy might get that mistrial? Remember, that was around the time they requested a mistrial. Was Kanye trying to distract away from his drama and issues? Do you think Kanye wanted to connect himself? But I think he's been helping. Kanye's been helping the family. Remember how Diddy and Kanye had a conversation that was recorded and uploaded about a month ago? Yeah, so who knows? Who knows? Why didn't some of the other friends show up? Why do y'all think some of Diddy's other friends didn't show up? Just Kanye.
What a moment that was. The family now is coming out.
And remember, Jane went to an event outside of Diddy, and they tried to keep that rapper's name anonymous. I don't know who the rapper were they were talking about, but catch this tea. Did y'all notice anybody Cassie wanted to date, see, or be with? Do you notice they named their names? They didn't have any problem stating who Cassie wanted to date. But in regards to that rapper, whoever that rapper was that had an event, they wanted to keep that person's name anonymous. Catch that tea. They wanted to tell every person Cassie wanted to leave Diddy for or move on or date. But they kept people anonymous. And people were like, why are you keeping them anonymous when Cassie people that she liked or wanted to be with, their names are out there? Fair use reaction clip.
I can see the mother of Sean Combs waving and giving a thumbs up. His sons walking out as well. Twin daughters, you can hear perhaps the cheers from some of the supporters, if you can hear them over the hum of the traffic. There were supporters in the courtroom throughout, a few outside, but only Kanye West showed up to court. And when he walked in his all-white suit, he said he was here to support Sean Combs, but he never saw him. He was not allowed inside the courtroom itself. He watched about 10 minutes of the proceedings inside an overflow room and was in and out of the courthouse in about 20 minutes. And we're not sure whether he was invited or not, or showed up of his own volition. There really haven't been that many supporters, apart from his family, that just left court, as you can see, waving and giving a thumbs up moments ago. Sean Combs has...
That's not true, because some YouTubers were on Diddy's side. Some YouTubers were saying they don't see the RICO. He shouldn't even be in jail. Some YouTubers were on Diddy's side. Real talk. Fair use reaction clip.
Been largely left alone with members of his family, including the mother of at least one of his children. His twin daughters were here at the beginning. They came at the end. His sons were here throughout the case, as was his mother. And when the jury came back stuck yesterday, Combs turned to his mother and said, "It's going to be okay." And today, after the outcome, he turned to his family and said, "I'm coming home, baby."
Tomorrow.
Fair use reaction clip. Okay, you guys, I thank y'all all for being here. I hope you guys subscribed. I see that the numbers have gone up. I appreciate you all for being here, for subscribing. I see those numbers went up, baby. We are hopefully going to hit 40K this week. I hope we do. You guys, I hope you had a great 4th of July. I hope you're staying cool. I hope you're checking on your family members and staying cool. It's been hot, hot, hot in a lot of different cities. So be safe. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Real talk. The jury made a decision, and we have to respect it. The jury made a decision, and many people have to respect it. I'm not changing my thoughts. I have been this way from day one. I've called out Diddy. I've called out Cassie. I've called out attorneys. We've stayed and remained the same. Period. We ain't changed. Whatever's been presented, that's what we talked about. So, we'll see what happens. Many people feel that he'll get less than 5 because of how there's like a chart or something. There was something I was going to play, you guys, but I know if I play it, I might not get that green sign from YouTube. So back in the day, I used to give y'all a lot of commentary about different stuff, and I would keep y'all updated. But whenever I do that, I don't get that green sign. And I was bringing y'all to TTTTT. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do a short regarding it. Young Miami, I think she had posted something like clock the T with her fingers after they found him not guilty on a lot of the charges. But we'll see what happens in regards to if he gets less than 5. And if they'll do the time served. So, copyright disclaimer, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Okay, also, there was a lot that happened outside of the courtroom in regards to the elevators. Inside the courtroom, people laughing, giggling, some of the jurors' responses. So there was a lot. Some YouTubers are being called out for allegedly not telling the truth on certain situations, or making statements for clicks and views. I can't confirm or deny everything that transpired, but I saw a lot of the videos that were live in regards to people being called out for not telling truths. Some people like that. Some people are subscribed to that. Some people subscribe to how people are treated and talked about. We've talked about both sides. Cassie, Diddy. We've talked about the toxic relationship. And this is the other thing too. When the employees stayed on and kept cleaning up those rooms, they made decisions. They made decisions to keep cleaning up after those FOs. Some people said they were told to get in and get out. Some people were like, okay. Some people said, oh, I had to stay up for 3 or 4 days. After the first day, I would have been like, I'm gone. People have to realize there were HR concerns being with. There was union concerns. And I think they had said something about they didn't want to bring KK up because then if they would have brought KK up, it would have been like, well, KK, did Cassie complain? Did Mia complain? Did Jane Doe complain to you? If she would have took the stand, she would have had to tell what she saw, what she heard, and what the concerns were. Them not putting her on the stand was their fault. Them not putting the drivers, the bodyguards on the stand was their fault. He wasn't in this alone. Just putting up the assistant saying they cleaned up a room. Come on. What he does in his private time? You made it more so about that than what you found in the crib. What you rated him for. But it is what it is. Everyday people are questioning this trial. Everyday people. Lawyers are talking about it. So it is what it is. So decisions were made and we got to respect it. So we will see if he gets less than 5. I know the family wishes he was there for the 4th of July, spending time. He did put out a huge bond to try and get out, and they denied it. So I appreciate y'all. Be safe, be kind, be respectful. I hope you guys continue to enjoy your weekend. I am. I'm around a lot of great people. We're having fun. Poolside, doing the doggone thing. So I'm here, just bring y'all some TTT. I did go live yesterday. I was exhausted. I went live Friday. I was exhausted. And I went live Thursday. But I brought y'all the TTT. Many things are being talked about. Cassie, if you missed the live from yesterday, there was a gentleman that's trying to sue Cassie in regards to what transpired between him and Cassie. Allegedly, the feds wanted to keep him quiet to after the trial because he would have showed a different side of Cassie. So his allegations, we'll see if there's text messages. We'll see even in regards to that civil lawsuit. Will the judge go in his favor? If you don't have proof, sit down quickly. You don't have proof, sit down quickly. We'll see what civil lawsuits get settled. We'll see what civil lawsuits get settled immediately. So I thank you guys. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. A lot of people work long hours. So this weekend has been great for them to have a lot of great quality time with their families. And, you know, check on your moms, your dads. Check on your sisters, your aunts. Some women are going through a lot of situation and poor relationships. Some men are going through a lot of situation and poor relationship. People should be loved and respected across the board, period. We don't just talk about women that are victims. Men are victims too. Real talk. You got to protect your people. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting. I don't know what that is, but even if I think it's a side-eye comment, I will block it or delete it. Thanks for being here, everyone. Be blessed. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for subscribing. My numbers went up a lot today. Thank you. Bye, everyone.